Hello, MTI members and all you out there. Welcome to Heat Treat Live right here from your home base, Jacksonville, Florida, the corporate offices of the Metal Treating Institute. We have our guest, Dr. Rick Marks, to the left here. Dr. Marks, say hello to everybody.
Hello to all of MTI. It's great. Although I can't see, it's great to be with you.
Well, so if everybody would look down to their, probably on the right of their screen, there is a chat box there. If you hear anything Dr. Marks or myself says about leadership and management and managing people that you would like to hear some more information on, or just you have a question about something going on, click in that box and type your answer in and click go, and we will answer that. We're monitoring. As Dr. Marks is talking, I'll be monitoring that box and ask him questions on your behalf. But just before we get into the content, what Dr. Marks is going to talk about, MTI is always busy, always doing really cool stuff for the memberships out there. I just want to mention a few things that are happening. So coming up in October is Furnaces North America, the biggest heat treat show in the world in 2018. You're not going to want to miss that. So if you get the opportunity, go out to furnacesnorthamerica.com and get yourself logged in and get yourself coming to the show. We're going to have 35 technical sessions, incredible networking sessions, and 170 of the top suppliers there, so you can see the latest in trends, equipment, and technology. So we're excited. This will be a big show. Next big thing going on at MTI is we have $35,000 in scholarships being handed out this year in August, and our application process goes to July 31st. If you know somebody that needs a $5,000, and ultimately there's going to be one $15,000 scholarship given to a high school or college student going into the world of engineering, industrial sciences, or materials. You got somebody on your list, forward on the application. You can go to heattreat.net and click on the MTI Educational Foundation under industry links, and it'll take you right to the description of the application and criteria. So make sure to pass that on to anybody you think needs some help financially in this world of getting better. Yes, 2019, our famed management training session, which Dr. Marks is a part of session 3 of that 4-session series. That is opening up for registration right now as we speak. You can go out to heattreat.net and click on training, and you'll see 2019 Yes Management Training Program. If you've got somebody in your office you want to take to the next level, or you're somebody that wants to be in that program, you can go out that link and you can now register for that. And we're taking those. We only take 30 up to 34 people in that program. So it's a very exclusive program. It's graduated 350 plus people the last 12 years. People have really basically said it has been the one thing that has changed their life, both personally and professionally in the heat treating industry. So we want to change your life and make you a better person at work as well at home. So, and then something I always mention on Heat Treat Live is our articles. You'll want to pay attention to our MTI Insight newsletter. We are just screaming with great content. This past month, we had stuff on cybersecurity. As you become more online and more digital in your furnace operations and your operations in general, cybersecurity is a huge thing that you need to be paying attention to. And we're putting out great content on the keys to making sure that your furnaces and your data is all secure, as well as building a lights out operation. With there being no more people to hire because unemployment's at 4%, it's very tough to hire more people. So how do you automate and expand your services and your revenues and your products through having lights out operations where things are happening without any humans being in there? Lots of good articles on that. And then a big thing, predictive maintenance strategies, how you can keep your machines moving as fast as possible, as optimal as possible, without having a lot of downtime, so it costs you money. Downtime costs us money. So how can you do predictive maintenance so you can keep those machines running as much as possible? So a lot of that stuff is wrapped up in our MTI Insight. These articles are actually on our weekly e-news. So if you get our weekly emails, these are coming through. If you wait till the 4th week of the month, you get them then. But here's what I will tell you. Your competition is reading the emails and getting that good data today instead of waiting to week 4. So if you want print, you got it, but you can be getting this information on real time every single week from MTI. So with that said, MTI is cooking and doing some great things, but right now we want to talk about maintenance, management and leadership. And Dr. Marks, so when we talk about management and leadership, one of the biggest fallacies I read in a book one time is that just because someone is a great furnace operator or they're a great salesperson or a great quality manager, they must be somebody that's great at managing the people that do those things. And that's just simply not true. I mean, what's your reaction to that?
Well, we always say in our world that there's a difference between leaders and managers. You can be a manager. That means you're in a position of authority. But people who are leaders are very different in how they function. And so what we want to see are great leaders in management positions, not just people in management positions. Because, I work for bosses who, they were basically managers, but they weren't great leaders. And there's a real difference between the two.
So let's lead into that. So for the people online who are sitting there thinking, well, I wonder if I'm a leader or a manager. I mean, how would you characterize the differences between the two so they could kind of see what their strengths and weaknesses and maybe where they need to improve?
Yeah, and the neat thing is we'll be actually going more in detail into this in August. But some of the ideas are that managers are people that have employees, where actually leaders win followers. Managers have employees, and because they have employees, those people are mine, and I tell them what to do. But what leaders do is they recognize, hey, these are people who choose to follow me, and so I'm going to continue to win them over and lead them where they want them to go. Where managers tend to push people, leaders tend to have people follow them. Managers are people who tend to react to change. Reaction is a part of the lower order brain. It's animal energy. And
Right.
so when you're active to brain, you're not actually thinking things through. Where leaders are people who actually create change. They don't just react to what's happening around them. They actually create change. And another thing I always say is that managers communicate, they tell you what, but leaders persuade. They reason with you. They motivate in their talking. Those are some of the idea. I think the biggest thing is managers tend to be disrespectful, but leaders tend to be respectful.
Right. So when I think of managers and leaders, managers seem to want to get in the weeds and do a lot of the work, whereas leaders are great at delegating, building people up, and empowering their teams. And what would you say would be the obstacle to get over if you're a manager that really can't take your hand off and you're scared to delegate, you're scared to build people up? Some of it, I think, is because is that some self insecurities that they have about themselves, that if I help another person be a superstar, that might be a threat to my job.
And that shows the immaturity of the manager, doesn't it?
Correct.
Because great leaders are secure, and they recognize I hire people because of their skill sets, and I want to set them free, so that if I set that person free to be who they are when I hired them to be, then I excel myself as a leader. But managers in their insecurities have to control others and dictate what they do, how they think, et cetera, et cetera. Now, let's be honest. I'm a 12-year military veteran, right? So I
Right.
understand leadership. I understand the chain of command. But even within a chain of command, leaders tend to be very respectful. They allow people to excel, and they allow people to grow, where managers restrict and constrict people.
I remember it takes me to a great comment that I read about Stephen Jobs at Apple Computer when he was alive. He basically said, we hire great people not to tell them what to do, but to have them tell us what we need to be doing. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, it's true. I've always said it's interesting when I talk to managers, or HR people. It's interesting. We hire people based on all the strengths they have in their resume, right?
right.
Then you hire them, and the rest of the time you're there, you're pointing out all their faults.
Correct. Yeah.
And you wonder, do I have any strengths? What did you hire me for? If I'm this really bad person, what did you hire me for, right?
Well, it kind of speaks to the HRs of their own management style as well.
That's true. That's true.
So let me
Okay.
ask you something. So where do you find when you look at the difference between great managers and leaders? Because here's what I do know: not all managers are to be leaders. We need people to lead, and then we need people to manage because they get the work done. But when you look at the good managers, the good oh, and I just had somebody say, could you speak up a little bit? It sounds like you're not coming through clear. So just make sure you speak up, Rick.
Okay. Am I okay now?
I heard you there. Yes. So when you look at good leaders and managers and ones that aren't so good, what do you think is the difference between the two?
I think when you see a lot of the research today around leadership, you hear a lot about emotional intelligence. You hear about what is called relational self-awareness. That great leaders are people who have what is known as emotional. They're emotionally healthy.
Right.
The key term in culture is emotional intelligence, based on the book by Daniel Goleman, Emotional Intelligence, which basically says a higher person moves up the corporate ladder. They actually get themselves in trouble and fired, not because of knowledge issues, but they get themselves in trouble because of how they treat people, which is an
Right.
indication of their lack of emotional health. I'm 56 years old. I've always said that I can be 56 years old and still emotionally a child. And what we have a lot today, sadly, are emotional children raising children. That would mean then we have a lot of unhealthy emotional adults actually in leadership positions.
Right. So when you talk about emotional health, I mean, connected that, I know a lot of people, when you say emotional intelligence in the workplace, so what does emotional health have to do with leading people overall?
Because it has to do with how you treat people. It has to do with how you respond versus react to situations, particularly around people issues. So we kind of define emotional health. It's a state of enhanced well-being that's created through highly conscious choices and practices. Um, a healthy, emotionally healthy person, when things take place, I always say they operate basically in three ways. They operate out of humility, they operate with goodwill, and they're still respectful. I was doing a training a few years ago, folks. It was with a John Deere company, and I had a bunch of engineers in the room, and I was
Right.
talking. One engineer kind of pushed himself back from the table. He said, "So this is a bunch of touchy-feely stuff. Is that right, Dr. Marks? This is all touchy-feely stuff." And I'm always respectful and operate goodwill. And I said to him, I said, "What are you actually saying?" He goes, "You need to understand something. We're a bunch of engineers in this room." And out of respect, I said, "Can I share with you what I'm thinking right now?" He said, "Yes." I go, Do you want to be an engineer who has a heart, or do you want to be an engineer who's heartless?" And the room was dead quiet. And he goes, "I get it." Yeah, I said, "I'm not asking you not to be an engineer. You don't want me building a bridge.
Right.
I'm not an engineer. I want you to be an engineer. But don't use the fact that you're an engineer to justify mistreating people."
Right.
And great people, great leaders who are emotionally healthy know that, and it's instinctual in them and how they treat people and guide people.
So how does someone, if they're in that, that gentleman you just talked about, I'm
Uh-huh.
sure there's somebody on this webcast that says, you know what, that's me. What would you say to that person of like 3 steps they need to begin to think through and look the best practices to move out of that and into someone that's got it more of a heart in the workplace?
If we're going to give the 1,000-foot view, the first thing is you got to become self-aware. Nobody can have self-control over who they are if they're not self-aware of what they're doing. So
Right.
being mindful of what's going on inside of you when your brain is being flooded with norepinephrine and all those kind of chemicals, because something's not going your way, the lower brain just reacts at 1/2,000 of a second. But you can be aware when that's happening, and when that starts to happen, you got a 6-second window to regulate it. Great people know how to do that. They regulate their biology so that they can move to a greater conscious choice of how they want to deal with the emotional issue that's taking place right there, right now with that employee. So the first thing is self-awareness. The other is, once you have self-aware, be constructive. I always say move to goodwill and move to respect. Those
Mm-hmm.
two are very constructive. So I can take a deep breath, and then the way you deal with the employee or you deal with the issue, just do it with respect. Make
Right.
respectful decisions. Does that mean you won't fire somebody? Oh no, you'll fire people, but you'll fire them because they deserved it, and it won't be because of you. I mean, what is it we say in our trainings? Is that people today aren't leaving their jobs; they're leaving their managers, they're leaving their
Right.
supervisors. They're
Exactly.
going to find the same kind of job somewhere else. They're just sick of the people who are leading them, and you lose. Then you have to hire somebody else and train them. And I go, why don't we just deal with the leader that everybody else is leaving? You know,
Right.
nobody wants to talk about dealing with the manager. I go, well, they're costing you more. I remember one of the top 10 trauma surgeons was sent to me to work with by the facility he worked for. And though he's one of the top 10 in the world, he's costing them tens of thousands, actually hundreds of $1,000s, because nurses and aides won't work with him. He's so abusive emotionally.
Right.
And so they finally said, look, even though you're great, we can't, you cost us too much.
Right.
So they sent him to go get help for himself.
Well, so you're talking a little bit about personal. I mean, a lot of the emotional health comes from the personal life. So talk a
Yeah.
little bit, let's transition into, you've always said this in our Yes Management classes, which I've always thought have been so profound, but what's playing in the olden days, it was don't bring home to work. But nowadays, what we're learning, as you've always said, is that what's going on in the home is beginning to play out itself out in the workplace. And if you could kind of speak to that just a little bit.
Businesses lose $6 billion due to divorce in the workplace. I actually have, I think I showed it to you on my laptop, a Excel spreadsheet. I can tell any CEO how much money they lose for every divorce in their workplace. And so businesses are starting to realize, wow, the breakdown of the family actually costs us productivity. It
Right.
costs employee focus, because these people are going through some kind of family crisis. They get sick more because their immune system's down, so they're taking off more time from work. That's why Chick-fil-A as a company offers relationship education to their employees. Why? Because if we have healthy employees at home, I got a better employee at work. So rather than wait for a person to go to an EAP after they're already in crisis, Chick-fil-A and companies like that move to prevention and
Right.
start skills up front before it happened. And so if when companies begin to realize, wow, we can actually have a positive influence in our employees, not just it doesn't affect, it not only affects what happens here at work, but the skills are transferable back home.
Right. So you started talking a little bit about the three centers of the human brain and the thinking. Can you jump in and share with us what you mean by those three centers of the brain?
Yeah, there's the brain has three primary functions: survive, feel, and think. And healthy, mature people know how to regulate all three of them. The survival brain is that part of your brain that runs all your bodily functions for you, your ability to think, your ability to breathe, your heart beating. Legal clinical death is when the brainstem goes. That's the part of the brain I'm talking about, the cerebellum. You're dead. Kind of wrapped around, that's what's known as the limbic system. That's the emotional brain.
Right.
All emotions come from that areas of the brain as well. And so, but the problem is the emotional brain and the lower order brainstem, the survival brain, they don't think. They just react to what's going on in the environment.
Right.
Through pain. Humans, though, have a well-developed neocortex, which is known as a thinking brain. And what emotional people know how to do is they know how to regulate the emotional brain with the rational mind. Immature people, like a boss I used to have years ago, he would just spout off whatever he was going on in his emotional brain in the moment with no rational controls, and he damaged and hurt a lot of people.
Right.
And didn't care. That was the sad part. So really healthy, mature people are able to regulate what's going on inside of themselves physiologically, because that's what great leaders and emotional intelligence is about. And then they make good decisions based on what's taking place, so that, and we would say, so that the relationships win, and in the corporate world, the team wins.
Right. So what is the manager that is with another manager, or the owner that may be on here looking at their manager, that has a guy or a lady that just constantly, when they've got the employee that just for some reason doesn't listen, unmotivated, and he's always in their face saying, can you just do your job, or will you just stop it? I mean, how do you address that manager to get them from not aware to self-aware?
Questions. But my way of doing things with like folks that work for us, I may bring them to the office and say, hey, listen, I noticed this is what's happening. So I call out the behavior. I'd like to understand what's behind that.
Right.
Where is this coming from for you? Now, some people go, well, I'm not a therapist. I'm not playing a therapist. I want to gain understanding, because once I can understand where it's coming from, then I know how to intervene. If that means I need to send them to a therapist, I will. But once I understand where it's coming from, then I can have a little bit of compassion for them and maybe set a plan as an employer to help them so they can be better in the workplace. Because I don't want to go get rid of you and hire someone else. Now I got to train them all.
Right.
So I believe there's a way that we can help people, motivate people to become better. But first thing I always do is ask questions. Where is this coming from? What is this about? I know we detail in this in Cincinnati coming up. What are all the needs that people have that are behind all this behavior?
Right. So if that person doesn't, leads us to so if you don't regulate and you don't move that and do something about it, what ultimately can happen?
Yelling, screaming, coldness, dissension. Remember this: if an employee learns not to trust you because they get the message you don't care, that you're all about yourself, you don't understand how it is for me, that person will do their job.
Right.
Because they want a paycheck and stay out of trouble. But they're going to do the minimum it takes to do that.
Right.
I want to be a leader that inspires people to do 150%.
Right.
Now, I know it's going to sound weird, particularly sometimes in different industries, but I saved the book. It was a book that Tom Clancy co-wrote with Lieutenant General Anthony Zinni. Zinni was head of Central Command, retired Lieutenant General of the United States Marine Corps. And it was basically a book about Zinni's life. I saved the book because of one paragraph at the end of the book. And Zinni wrote the paragraph for sure. Wrote that chapter for sure. But here's what Zinni said: the United States Marine Corps. Now you think about the epitome of masculinity, right?
Right.
They sent me to hundreds of leadership trainings. He said, but every leadership training failed to teach me the fundamental of great leaders. And here's what he said: I had to learn to love the people that I led, because if the people that I led knew that I loved and cared about them, I got 200%.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, he said, and if they believe I did not care about them, I got the minimal.
Right.
There is a lot of that's a lot of wisdom right there in that one statement.
So one of our members has just asked. He said, "Sounds like you're talking about using a coaching approach. What do you think about focusing on creating a coaching culture in your managers?" I think that's a phenomenal path to go down. But I think the first thing you have to do is you have to have the resources that sit managers down and teach them how to be coaches, how to ask questions instead of dictate. What do you think?
I'm all for it because that's how we do it in our world. And I'm always coaching 3 men at a time regularly, particularly guys who kind of mess up in the workplace. I'm working with one in Wisconsin right now who's a pain in the neck. His employees love him to this day after 2 years of kind of helping him move from an emotional infant state to a healthy, mature adult state. So I think I'm a big advocate of teaching that and helping people move into that role. Why? Because if I coach someone, then I'm actually helping my team out. I'm helping me out, and I'm helping them out. Everybody wins.
Right. Exactly. So I've heard you talk about 4 competencies of emotional health and maturity. What are each of those, and describe those for us?
All right, the 4 competencies for emotional health are these. First is self-awareness. You have to be emotionally self-aware. You got to be able to label what you're feeling and be aware that, okay, I'm getting triggered. So the first thing is self-awareness. The second then is self-control or self-management. By the way, these kind of build on each other. You cannot do one after the other. So
Right.
once I be self-aware, now I can stop myself from doing something. Why? Because I'm aware that I'm doing it.
Right.
So self-management is the second one. Once you've mastered what are called personal competencies, self-awareness and self-management, now you can begin to master social competencies. And that first one is social awareness. Now, really mature mature emotional leaders, they have the ability to go into a room and read the emotional state of the team. And they can understand, okay, this is a group that's divided, and here's what I'm sensing taking place underneath all of it. And the highest level emotional intelligence is known as relationship management. Not only can they read the team emotionally, they know how to guide the team to bring them back into a sense of what I call connection, a sense of us.
Right.
At the risk of sounding like I'm pushing somebody, but my brother Don is literally one of those men.
Mm-hmm.
He is sought out as a leader, as a coach by companies because he lives it every single day. That's who he is as a leader. He's actually one of those guys.
Well, I heard one time 4 questions that everybody should ask all their employees, and you would really have the notion of you got the right people in the right position. But one was, what do you like doing? Because a lot of times we have people doing a job that they hate for some reason. But what do you like doing? What do you not like doing? What is your biggest pet peeve? And then what's your deal breaker? And I think the deal breaker is the big deal because a lot of us don't know the deal breaker. The moment we break an employee's deal, they're looking for a job for the next 4 to 5 weeks, costing us tons of money. But if we'd have known their deal breaker, we'd have known not to do that action. One of it could have been, I just want to be treated with respect, and even when I'm not doing right, I want someone to respectfully share me that I'm not doing right so I can improve, as opposed to just yelling and screaming at me.
Yeah, Dave Salyers, who's head of branding for Chick-fil-A, I sat through one of his corporate programs, and they're interesting because, of course, everybody knows that as a company, their leadership model is profound, and people come and train in their leadership models from all over the country. But here's what he said: if you make it through the interview process to get to me, he said, you're going to be hired.
Right. He
said, I spend 2 hours with you interviewing you. He said, but I don't ask you about the job. I ask you about your life.
Right.
Yes. One of the things I want to know is, if you weren't working here, what would you be? What do you like to do as a hobby? That's what it was. And people might say, I want to be a guitarist. I want to be skydiving. He says, that is my job as your leader now. I expect you to do your job. But as your leader, I'm going to help you achieve those personal hobby goals for yourself.
Right.
Now you think about, you go to work for a place, and they're going to make me become a better me.
Right.
No wonder their retention rate there is so high.
Well, and a lot of that, especially for the younger generation has somewhat been sheltered in a lot of cases because the baby boomers know what they did when they were younger, and they don't want their kids doing that. So they've sheltered them, just no fault of their own. That's just what they did in a lot of cases. But they've never been really taught how to manage money, how to manage their time, and how to connect with people and network. And so I think companies that do what you say, they're reaching in and finding out, what are your goals? What would you like to personally solve or do in your life? And then help them have a chance to do that. I think are going to be the ones that really do. But getting back to just managers and leaders in the company. So what would you say, as you know, we got about 15 more minutes here. So what are some things that you would think, what are some key relationship management skills you would think would be great for everybody on this webcast to read about or check into, watch a YouTube video where it's getting to know better personalities, getting to know how to deal with a difficult person? What are some of the keys that you think someone should be leaving this webcast and trying to get better at as a manager or leader?
I would say try to think about these things. Number one, if you don't know how, take responsibility for your choices. Even the choices that basically inflict harm or pain to your employees, or people even up the chain. You know, let's be honest. We don't mind hurting people down the chain, but you mess with somebody up the chain, you know your job's at risk, right?
It's my money.
Yeah, we don't mind the energy flowing down, but let's be honest, it's going to flow up as well because
right.
So I think take responsibility for your choices. You know, one of the things that we do where I work is if, you know, some of us missteps or says something in a way that came across offensive, we go, hey, listen, you know, forgive me, I shouldn't have come across that way. I don't want to be that kind of a person.
Right.
And so you start to take responsibility for your choices. By doing so, what you're actually saying to those people that you interact with on a regular basis is that I want to be a person of integrity. I want to be a person who's known as respectful. I want to be a person of character. You see, and interesting today, we have somehow divorced character from leadership. I don't notice that, because what we value today now is charisma. We don't value character. We value charisma. We like very charismatic people. The problem is, I know there's a lot of charismatic people with very poor character.
Right.
You see, and so start taking responsibility for your choices. If you need some help in that, you know, by all means, go do that. And I think the second is, and this is really interesting, research shows that great leaders who are emotionally healthy, emotionally intelligent, are always fully present for their employees. What that means is they're not in their head thinking about something else. They're not looking away when they're talking to you. They're looking in your eye. They're outside of themselves. They're right here, right there for you, with you. And that employee walks going, wow, that person thinks about me, cares about me, and what I have to say has value and merit to them.
Right.
So be fully present for other people. I mean, think about how many times have you been talking with someone and you could tell they're not there.
Right. Their eyes are glancing. They're not. Their answer to your question is not really the answer to the question you asked.
Yeah, because they're not fully present. And what do? You away from that going, I can't trust you.
Right.
And I'm not sure I want to talk to you. Right.
Right.
So learn to be fully present for other people, and this is key. Great leaders learn to listen more than they talk. Managers like to talk a lot,
right,
but rarely listen. And I have to remind myself, sometimes the people out there on the front line doing the work see things that I never see because I'm not out there with them.
Right.
And I've also learned this: no one can ever learn as long as they're talking. Listening says to others that I value you, I value your thoughts. And listening to someone doesn't mean you have to agree with them.
Right.
That's one thing I learned. And I think the last thing I wrote here is, in all my interactions, practice goodwill and be respectful.
Right.
I always say you can have goodwill and respect with the meanest of people. That may not mean you want them in your life and want to be around them long, but at least when I'm in your presence, I can still have goodwill and I can be respectful. Why? I'm not going to lower myself to your standard. You know, that old ancient Jewish proverb says, you don't engage a fool in their folly.
Right.
And that is, when you do, you end up becoming a fool like them. And I always don't lower yourself to those people's standards. Learn when not to talk and when to talk.
So a lot of these people hold what's called stand-up meetings between shifts. So first shift's going off, second shift's coming on. They spend 5 minutes relating to the next shift, what's going on. You have some great comments on how do you make those meetings relational, where there's a connection among shifts. Because I've always said, when you care about something or care about a shift enough, you'll want to do things right. It's when you don't care and have no relationship, it's like, we'll just pass it off to the next shift. So how do you think they can make the 5 minute, 8 minute stand-up meeting, or any meeting that they do in general, how could you interject some of your concepts to make that meeting to be more meaningful to people?
The first thing that's always on top of my list is always share appreciations.
Mm-hmm.
Never not do that enough. You know, you appreciate the first shift. Hey, listen, I noticed this happened today. Really appreciate that. Bob, by the way, I saw you did this today. I appreciate that. Hey, you guys coming on, listen, I noticed last night when you got done, you did this. I appreciate that. Share appreciations. And there's biology behind it, because whenever you share an appreciation, that person's brain releases dopamine. Dopamine is a neurochemical boost of like, wow.
Right.
Allows all the time. People want to know they're appreciated. So always share appreciations. That builds a connection to you and to each other.
Right.
Now, that's the first thing that comes off my mind. And secondly, if you got to deal with some conflictual issues, don't do it in the group. Do it one-on-one away from the group.
So let's talk about that. We got a few minutes left. Let's talk about that. How's the best way to handle when you have a conflict that you need to really address some people just kind of come out and lay it on the line and do it in a negative way. Kind of how should you approach someone if you've got a conflict that an issue that you need to deal with that person?
From my perspective, I ask myself, is this a system issue or a person issue? If a system issue, then you address the group about the problem in the system, whatever's happening systematically. Say, listen, I noticed that in the breakdown, this is happening here. Guys, we need to change it and do it this way.
Right.
You're focusing on the problem, which is the system. If you, Tom, got an attitude and you're not doing this, I go, hey, Tom, listen, at break, we need to have a talk. All right? But I'll probably do that off to the side, not publicly.
Right.
But because now I have to deal with you. You're doing
right.
something that needs to be addressed or redirected. And I'll do it with goodwill. But I always go, if it's a group issue, then you deal with it at a system level. If it's an individual person issue, deal with them one-on-one.
Well, I like in your Yes programs session, when you do that, you always say that the best managers can dictate between whether it's a systematic issue or a problem behavior.
Yes.
And I think that's key, because sometimes, as you said, you've got a manager or you got an employee who never really received respect or approval from his father, and he's a nice guy, the employee is, but you have a manager who's treating him almost like his father, where he's on top of him, he's screaming at him, he says he's never any good. And the employee is just breaking down and screaming and acting out, when all he really wants is a manager to say, you know what I do like about you is you put this in the furnace really well. You keep things organized. You give them the good stuff, that dopamine's released. And the employee's like, you know what, that's all I was really looking forward to. So I think it's crucial that good managers and leaders understand the power of understanding, is he really a bad employee, or does he just have a problematic behavior where there was an unmet need that you could easily, through your emotional intelligence, make that happen?
Yeah, and I'm always conscious that particularly older folks in leadership, they go, well, this sounds like a bunch of psychology, or I'm not their daddy, I'm not their mama, they're coming here to work. That may be true, but the problem with that is this: then we assume that people check their humanity at the door.
Right.
And in the end, we're all human, and no one checks their humanity at the door. And great leaders know that.
Right.
So they understand, hey, this is still a person who deserves dignity, love, care, and support. And if I provide that as a leader, I will get 200% out of them, more than I will just by pushing them and saying, I don't care, suck it up and get over it.
Right. Awesome. So what I'm hearing in the last few comments is be self-aware of yourself, look at how you treat your people, encourage them more, tell them to do good things, and do appreciations at stand-up meetings.
Yes, very much so.
So any final comments that you would like to share with the group on just the one thing that you say, if you leave here and do nothing, do this?
I think the biggest thing would be two. One, always check yourself. Ask yourself, is the way that I'm relating right now to this person, is there goodwill and is it respectful? If it's not, the old in personal development, it's called the law of attraction. If you're an angry person, you're going to attract anger to you.
Absolutely.
If you're a person, you attract. We always attract to us the very things that we are. Religions call it the law of sowing and reaping. It's all the same thing. If you sow discord, you get discord. And the second thing is, become a very appreciative person.
Right.
Always find reasons to appreciate. You'll get more by doing that.
Exactly. Well, we all know that when someone's telling us how good we are and that we're doing a good job, our positive nature of us really comes out. We go from frowning to smiling, from mad to happy, and I think we should all strive to do that.
Yes.
So a couple of questions that came up. One of the big questions online was, will this be available online? And the answer is absolutely yes. If you go out to heattreat.net within about an hour and look to the right on there, you'll see it says Heat Treat Live. You'll be able to click past editions and click the top one in this, and you'll be able to rewatch this or share it with any of your people you want in your company. Now, what I want to say as we leave is, if you go out to our mtiacademy.com website for online training, we have a 12 module set where Dr. Marks lays out 12 different elements of key leadership and supervisory skills. You can get that online at MTI Academy. You can pay for it, or if you're part of our subscription process, you can have every manager go through it for free as a part of that. So I'd highly encourage, if you have people in charge of 2 or more people, I would make it mandatory that they go through that course and really talk amongst themselves about how they can be better leaders, because it's a phenomenal 12 module set. And then what I want to promote now is in August, on August 28th, if you're worried about your culture, people management leads to a company culture. And whether you have a culture or not, whether it's good or bad, you have one, you're just not paying attention to it. We're going to have a gentleman named Mark Segley, who I just saw in an hour-long presentation on how do you create an incredible culture where people want to come work for you, and how do you get people that not working for you want to come work for you. He's actually got a company that went from 30 employees to over 130 employees in 18 months, and he has more applications sitting on his desk of qualified people that want to come work for him than he has jobs available. It's an amazing what he's been able to do in that endeavor, and how he's created a culture where people love what they do, they love coming to work, and they love making a difference as they come there. So that's going to happen on August 28th. You'll be getting the emails. We challenge you to sign up for that. But we'd like to say thank you to Dr. Marks for being here. Doctor, say bye, everybody.
Goodbye, everyone. I got to go actually speak at a plenary here at a conference in Orlando. So blessings to you.
All right, Dr. Marks, good to see you. And members, always remember, we're here for you. We'll do anything for you. You are not just strong, you're MTI strong. I will see you in August on Heat Treat Live. Have a great day.